website and marketing. That's really the main focus of our business. So we help our small business client mainly with their website and their digital marketing strategy. So we've been around for quite a while, and yeah, things are always changing, of course. So we try to keep ahead of the curve, and having these webinars is kind of our way of offering education, free education for our clients, so that you can become more knowledgeable about marketing and especially digital marketing. And that you also can, we're really hoping that this is useful for you and that you can actually apply this to your own situation. That's kind of the goal of these sessions. So with that, oh, I forgot something. We also have Jason on the call as well. So Jason, actually, since we're talking about websites today, Jason is our lead developer, technical guru. I don't know how you describe Jason. Hi, Jason. So yeah, so he's in the call. He's hanging low in the background, just in case we get into a situation that things are getting too technical and we can't figure out the answer to your questions. You want to say hi, Jason?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about the importance of your website, like why do you still need a website in 2021? We look at, again, the title is, like some things that you should think about or mistakes to avoid when you're building a website. So if you are thinking about upgrading your current website or building a complete new one, the whole focus of today is to figure out 7 things that we think are super important for you to take in consideration when you do these upgrades, and to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that a lot of other people are making. So we're talking about the website itself. This is not going to be very technical. It's more about the content, the design, and usability of the website. We do not believe that you need to be a web developer to figure these things out. We have people like Jason and other very talented people that can do that work. So it's about the strategy of your website and why you should pay attention when you build these things. Yeah, so we'll just go right into it here. And again, like I'll just open up my chat box here. Make sure that I kind of follow along as well. Okay, so how important is your website? The way we look at things today is your website is really the foundation of your online presence and your online marketing. In a lot of cases, our clients, the lot of the traffic that may get generated through search or to social media channels or anything else, like even face-to-face and just networking efforts that you or your staff is involved in, it generally always comes back to the website. So it's really important to have like a solid website that tells your story properly, because in a lot of cases, it's probably the first, or in some cases, even the only point of contact that they will have with your company before they even start inquiring about your services or your product. So it's really important to have that in place, because everything leads back to the website. So that's really important. Yeah, like let's face it, like with the current situation we're in and the trend that was already happening anyway, more and more things will be happening online. So we definitely need to make sure that we have that piece of real estate that we own. And that's another nice thing about a website. It's actually like a marketing piece that you actually own. Like anything you put on Facebook or on Instagram, you actually the information is not yours. And of course, the social media platforms, especially, they change the rules all the time. So if you build your complete marketing strategy on social media, for example, you're going to be exposed to some risk, because what if certain things you were able to do on social media no longer work? So again, we still truly believe that your website is at the core of your digital marketing efforts. So what are some of the components that go into building a website? So we always start with the strategy first. So instead of just building a really nice website, without any strategy is not a good idea, in our opinion. You always want to make sure that you think about your audience, you think about your messaging, like what problem are you solving for your client. The content is really important, more and more important now than ever, I think, especially when it comes to being found by Google and being, ranked high on Google. The content has taken a priority over some other SEO, like search engine tactics that we used to be able to do. So that's important to think about, and we'll talk about it in more detail. The layout and the sitemap, like the usability of the website is really a big deal now because people are very impatient and they just want to get right to the information. And you know how it is. You get frustrated pretty quick if you have to click too many times to get to the information you need. Design is still important. If you're thinking about doing a redesign on your website, design standards tend to change over time as well. What worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago, expectations are different now. The technology is different. So that's another key area that you need to take in consideration when you redevelop a website or build a new website. Another consideration is the actual technology that you're using. There's a lot of different what we call content management systems, and that's a fancy word for a way to update the website yourself. So again, that's a really important choice that you have to make as well. And then at the end, there's the domain and the hosting, which is more of a technical aspect of the website. So hopefully this makes sense. If not, by all means, we'd love to hear your feedback and your questions. But with that, we're just going to go into some of the 7 points that we want to discuss this morning. And the first one is an unclear message. And I think, Katie, you were going to say a few things. So Katie is our content strategist and writer. So she works a lot on messaging for our clients. So she's going to talk a little bit about, like the pitfalls of an unclear message and how you can kind of avoid some of those things. You're muted, Katie.
There we go. Sorry about that. But yeah, an unclear message is definitely a pitfall when it comes to websites. Content is kind of as they call it, the king of marketing. Is how you get your message across, like what you offer, your solutions that you provide, and what you can provide for your customers. So Peter, if you want to hop to the next slide there. So basically, what we at Edge is kind of our focus when it comes to content is your customer's problem. By focusing on your customer's problem, you're immediately catching their attention. You're immediately showing that you care about them and their problem. And by focusing on that, because let's face it, people are really, I don't want to say selfish, but they're kind of more focused on how their problems are going to be solved versus kind of a history or a big spiel about your business. Like it's interesting that your business was formed back in 1979, but it's not really going to benefit your customer. So by focusing on your customer's problem, you are going to immediately catch their interest. They're going to want to learn more about how you can solve their problem, what products or service you have to offer. And it's also very important to have a clear and concise messaging, because as they kind of say, if you confuse, you lose. If they don't understand what you have to offer, if you don't explain it well, they really won't stick around to kind of find out more. So you want to basically set yourself apart with your messaging from your competition by focusing on your customer, because let's face it, again, everyone's kind of focusing on themselves. Your competition is talking about themselves too much, and your customers want to find out more about their problem and your solution to it.
Yeah, so thanks, Katie. So we did a whole webinar last year just on the messaging part. I think some of you have been part of that as well. So there's a lot more we can say about the messaging, but that's the number one thing that we see in a lot of websites. That is not, like, it may be clear to us what we're doing or what problem we're solving for our clients, but it's not always very clear to to the people that land on your website. And that's a problem because they only have, like Katie said, a few seconds to kind of judge you on your cover, so to speak. And if you don't clearly speak to their problem, they may be gone and find another provider that is more clear in their messaging. So that's, again, that's the number one thing you need to keep in mind, and that takes time. And sometimes it needs an external person to actually figure out what your messaging is. Like look at your Google reviews, for example, that actually clients have described how they liked your service or product. Because as business owners, we're sometimes we're too close to the service we provide, and we think it makes sense. But if you actually go back and ask your clients, and that's we've done that too for clients, we actually do client interviews, you get some really neat insights in what it actually was that made them buy from you. So again, there's a lot of information you can tap into that you can, try to figure out what that messaging is. And oftentimes now on a lot of good websites, you have a, clear tagline on the top, right? Describing this problem in an emotional terms. So it's kind of emotional appeal. And then describe exactly what it is in really simple language. And that's oftentimes more difficult than it seems, but it can be done. And so that's the first thing to keep in mind. Anything else, Katie, on that?
Yeah, definitely. So as Peter kind of had mentioned, having the emotional appeal with the problem, at least how the framework we tackle it, there's actually 3 different aspects to your customer's problem that you kind of want to address. There's the external problem, so the obvious problem, they're missing something, they need your product to solve it. The internal problem, which is what the kind of emotions they're feeling without your product or service, like it's a frustration, confusion, they're overwhelmed. And then there's a philosophical problem, so basically all the good and bad within the world, like you shouldn't have to experience this because of. So yeah, there's quite a bit you have to basically put yourself into your customer's shoes to be able to make a connection with them through your messaging.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So then moving on to the next thing that is really important, and that's the use of free or do-it-yourself tools to build a website. So I just want to talk to you about that for a minute. Now, there's a lot of tools out there, and maybe some of you are familiar already with some of these platforms, and they definitely have a place in the world. I'm not here to criticize what they're doing or like they serve a certain market. But if you are really serious about your website and how it's being perceived by your audience and even how you actually rank with Google, and we talk about that in a moment, like in another point. It is actually with the cookie cutter websites such as Wix and Squarespace, although they give you lots of options and they're actually really affordable, right? Because you're only paying a small amount per month. Some of the things that we have experience with working with some of those platforms that our clients were investigating is that when it comes to your online visibility and your rankings, you're always going to be at a disadvantage compared to using a custom-built website that's actually properly put together, and only you have that look and feel of that website. Because I looked it up. Just by a show of hand in the chat, like, are you familiar with Squarespace or Wix or in any of those platforms? Have you worked with them, or do you have experience with them? Just out of curiosity, just put it in the chat box if you don't mind. So yeah, like some of the pitfalls that we have seen is, although they're built for non-technical people to use and maintain, most business owners are not designers, so you would have to use like a cookie cutter template that comes with something like Wix. Now, Wix has over 145 million users, which is crazy, right? Like it's a highly successful platform. But in essence, they only have 500 different templates that all these different users are using. So if you do the quick math on that, there's a lot of people, a lot of other businesses that are using the same template that you do. So first of all, that doesn't really represent your brand very well. And also, you don't have the flexibility to really build a site that is really focused on your business and describing what the problem is that you're solving. So again, there's a place for them, but if your website is a really important tool for you to get new clients and connect with existing ones, there's definitely some limitations that you have to be aware of. Now, in some cases, that's maybe it's a good starting point for you to just quickly get something up there, something that's really, cost effective and quick. But in the long run, if you're really serious about your business, you're probably going to want more customization and a more original look of your website. So that's one of the downfalls we see with the do-it-yourself platform. Now, the other one is it's actually when Google ranks different websites, or you say you're competing with another company in the same market space, the company with the custom website will always win in the end, because again, Google recognizes as well that you're, if you've gone the effort and actually build a custom website compared to using a cookie cutter, you definitely, Google's going to rate you lower because less time and effort went into the building of the site. And then we've seen it so many times. Now some of these platforms are getting better at this now, but they're still at a disadvantage. So if you're in a very competitive space and you really have some companies that are really in your way, so to speak, then again, it may not be the best platform for you, or the best strategy for you. The other thing is you don't actually own the website, right? Like as soon as you stop paying the subscription fees, your website will disappear. So it's kind of a long-term commitment as well. So you don't really own it, which we feel is just like owning your own home, right? Like although it's not always possible, it's sure is nice to have your own place, and you can actually do with it what you want. And you don't have any ongoing fees or things like that. And also, like if it ever comes down to, some of our clients, of course, are thinking about an exit strategy as well with their company. I think a good working website that has a lot of traffic and a lot of authority will definitely be a very valuable asset for the new owners as well. So that's another way of looking at investing in a custom website. Will give you an asset that is actually very valuable when when the time comes to sell your business, for example. So any questions about any of this? Because we're going through this fairly quickly, so I'd love to see some questions from the audience. Okay. While you're thinking about your question, I'm just going to go on to the next slide. So yeah, I've already discussed a few of these things. The Google ranking, like how your website shows up when people type in the service that you provide. Let's face it, if you don't show up in the Google result, it's like you don't exist today, right? Especially in the world we live in today. So that's a really big problem for a lot of small businesses. So you need all the help you can get to rank your business on Google, and having a custom website compared to a cookie cutter website will definitely help you with that, we believe. Also, oftentimes, because they're do-it-yourself platforms, they have a lot of additional features and kind of plugins that need to run to make your website possible to make it run. And that kind of generally slows down things. Sometimes there's security issues with that. So there's again, you don't have a lot of control over any of that. And that we feel that's kind of a disadvantage. When it comes to mobile responsive, and that's another thing that we talk about a little later, I believe. But there's very limited options that you have to customize that experience on the mobile phone. And again, that's a huge disadvantage, because both for your rankings with Google, but also for your users as well, like the mobile responsive version of your website. So the way it displays on a phone or a tablet is more and more important now, right? Because 60 to 70% of people will be using mobile to actually look at your website. So anyway, there's room for these do-it-yourself platforms, and I encourage you to check it out. I just want to make you aware of some of the pitfalls that you may run into. So then the next one is on the website, it's more content oriented again. So a clear call to action is missing. what we have found, and science and the marketing world knows this, you always need to tell people what to do next. And again, we as business owners, and we're no different. We're always kind of fake about what the next step is with the client. So, Katie, you wanna speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So as Peter kind of said, people basically have to be challenged to take action. They have to be told what to do next. You want to make the process for them as easy as possible, laying out all the steps of how to do business with you and also how to make that sale. Now with calls to action, there are direct and transitional calls to actions. Your direct call to action is for those who are ready to buy right away. And those transitional calls to actions are for those who are interested, but maybe need a little bit more time or a little bit more information on your business. So transitional calls to actions, you're basically capturing their email, their contact information, so you can continue to grow their relationship, continue to nurture it with valuable information on your business, free information, just anything to kind of build that trust with them up until the point they are ready to make the purchase. So now call to action, of course, can be the buy now buttons, those big flashy buttons that kind of draw your attention to either buy now or download our ebook. So an example of a direct call to action would be the buy now button, and the transitional call to action would be an example for download our ebook. As just like I said, you want to make it as easy as possible for your customer. Basically, you want to lay out every step for them and make it easy as possible to make the sale for them. Because again, if you confuse them, you'll lose them. So having a call to action on your website is very important. That's very clear and easy to follow.
Yeah, thanks for that, Katie. And yeah, like again, going back to that, like not everybody's ready to buy from you today, right? There's only a small percentage of people that are actually ready. They already know or trust you, or they just simply need your service today. But the majority of people land on your website probably are more thinking about purchasing your product or service, but they're not 100% sure yet. So what Katie just described is kind of, we give options, call to actions for different people in different stages of their journey with your company. The shop now or buy now or you know, like get a quote now. They're excellent because some people are just looking for those. So we need to have them on there, and that's great, right? Like they're instant revenue or instant success for you. But we should never forget about all the other people that are basically, you know, land on your website to find out more about you, see if they can trust you enough to do the work. And then, of course, these call to actions can also mean that you collect their email, for example, right? You've probably seen that on a lot of websites as well, that to download a certain resource or like a free product, you actually have to leave your email and your name. And of course, the reason why companies do that, that's a way to build your mailing list, so to speak. And you can actually contact those people later on and actually nurture those relationships and until they're actually ready to buy from you. So if you do that properly, like, of course, I'm not saying you're going to spam them with all kinds of things, but if you do that properly and if you actually give them valuable information along the way, people will respond to that and respect that, and they will not. They will remember you, right? Because they may land on your website right now, look at whatever it is you sell. But if 6 months from now, they actually need your service, they may not necessarily remember you. So that's kind of why we need to capture some of that information, and we need to have a clear call to what they should be doing next. Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks, Katie. So the other thing is tracking the performance of your website. So like once you have a website, like, do you actually know how successful it is? Like, how many people do you attract to your website? Like, what happens with people that visit your website? How long do they stay on there? Where they're from? You know, like all kinds of things are being tracked on your website traffic, generally speaking. Like, for example, like all our clients are on a tool called Google Analytics, and I think most of you probably have heard of that before. And so it tracks all these movements, all the interactions with the visitors on your website. And so if you don't know what's going on, I guess you just don't know if your website is actually working for you, right? So again, there's a simple fix for that. Like Google Analytics is a free tool that you can install. It's a little overwhelming. Jason can probably speak to that. Like it's very detailed, like in Google tracks everything, right? As we know. But that really gives you some really valuable information about what the success of your website, right? And it's not only visitors. Like having a lot of visitors is a really good start, but how many people that land on your website actually are converted into clients, or they click a certain button like the contact now, or whatever your the definition of success is, right? So if you don't know that, you're kind of flying blind, and you have no idea if you need to improve things, or how you compare to your competitors, for example. So again, if you don't have something like Google Analytics installed, I would highly recommend that you install that when you build your website. And most web developers, I think, will probably install that for you. But make sure that you have access to that as well, so you can actually check on and see how things are going. So websites are never completely finished in a way. There's always more work that needs to be done on the content, but also on like the technical things, right? Like it's kind of like a car. It needs ongoing maintenance from time to time. And yeah, like if you don't know what's wrong, then people may get frustrated actually using your website. So by all means, make sure that you have a way to measure the success of your website. Yeah, again, Google Analytics is a free tool. There's other tools as well that we're using more in depth, but there are subscription rates that go with that. So for the clients that we work for on a monthly basis, we use additional tools to track it. But Google Analytics is actually a really good tool from Google, and it's free. You don't have to pay them for it. All you need is a Google account. So again, if you're more interested in more information about that, by all means, let us know. So the next problem is for a lot of websites is that search engines cannot find you. And again, the way we look at the online presence and the website, if if people cannot find you by typing your service into Google, especially if you're a local business in your local market, it's like you don't exist, right? So what are some of the things that you need to think about when you actually build this website? It's not just building the technical portion and the template and how it all looks and feels. It's also actually a lot of effort actually goes into optimizing the content and the website, so you have a higher chance of ranking on Google. Now again, there's a lot of things you can do, like Katie said earlier. Content is kind of becoming more and more important compared to some of the tactics that we used to be able to do. You may remember way back in the early days of the web, you would cram a whole bunch of keywords behind the scenes, and then Google would pick up on those, hopefully, and you would rank higher. Google has become a lot more sophisticated over the years, and basically all these tactics have no value anymore. So Google actually will read the content on your website and makes a judgment call to see if the information that you have on your site is actually relevant for the searcher, the person that searches for information. And the websites that have the best content and are optimized for the search engines in a good way, they win, in our opinion. So that's a really important part to keep in mind. Yeah, like content is written for like one of the mistakes we see is the content is written for robots almost. Like it's oversaturated with all kinds of keywords, and it makes it really awkward reading, right? So again, it's awkward for your users because they go like, well, we can't really figure this out. But actually, Google doesn't like it either for that reason. So you actually, instead of ranking higher, you're probably going to lose some authority, and actually your website may go down in the rankings, which is, again, we have seen that. And yeah, that's a very bad strategy. So not many people are doing this anymore. I think everybody kind of get a better understanding how Google works and what they're after. And what Google is after, of course, is the best possible results for their clients, like you and I, when we're searching for a like a plumber, or we're searching for a restaurant. they want to give us the most relevant information. So the companies that have websites that keep that in mind, they generally win this this ranking race. Keywords and keyword strategy is still very important. So figure out what your top 10 or top 20 keywords are that your customers would type in to get to your service or product, and then insert them into the content, like weave them naturally into the content. Katie, you do that every day. So like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so the way integrating keywords has definitely changed a bit. It's basically integrating keywords and phrases that people are actually typing into Google, even questions that they're asking, because a lot of time people format what they're looking for into questions when they type into Google, like where can I find this plumbing part in Red Deer? So it's basically kind of using those keywords and integrating them into your content that will make sense, as Peter said, for the people who are reading it, as well as Google when they read it as well. So what I like to do is almost create a list of keywords before I even start writing the content, knowing that I have to integrate them into the content that I'm writing as well. So just having those kind of ready and prepared is beneficial as well.
Yeah, and there's some free tools available that you can actually search for the keywords that your clients likely will use, right? Because that changes all the time as well. Well, we're using several paid subscription tools, but is there a free tool for keyword research? Like I know there used to be the keyword planner in Google Ads. Is that still available?
I believe so. I've seen it. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so you can do a search for, or simply just go to the browser and see what shows up when you actually type in the words that you think your clients will use. Yeah, so again, this whole keyword area is still very relevant because the keywords kind of, like Katie said, dictate how you write, but use common sense and still use proper grammar and a very readable tone for your visitors. But actually, Google is also making a judgment call on that as well. So the better you write, the better the content is, the most relevant. Those are generally the websites that win the ranking game. So again, that's becoming more and more important. So if you're working on a website currently, or you're doing like an upgrade, that the content area is probably an area that for most of the websites that we deal with when clients come to us, it's fair to say they need a complete overhaul on everything. And I know that's not always possible, but at the very least, the landing pages and some of the more popular pages on your site, you can kind of pick away at updating them and making them better with some of those keywords in place. And you know what? If you start doing that, you're probably going to be ahead of your competitors fairly quickly, because still a lot of small businesses are not really paying attention to some of these things. So again, you can use it as to your advantage. So the next thing we want to talk about is the mobile devices, right? So it's no surprise that more and more people are just using their cell phone basically to do everything, and it depends a little bit on your business as well. But for example, if you're in the entertainment or in the travel industry, you know, we see rates of strictly using mobile devices up to 60 or 70%. In some industries, it may even be higher, right? Because people are on the road and actually looking for information. But needless to say, the mobile, you know, having your website displayed properly on a mobile device, like on a cell phone or a tablet, is really important. It's for your users, right? And I have to say, like, there's still a lot of websites actually that are not totally optimized for mobile. And that's a problem, because first of all, for your users, like your users are expecting this very smooth interaction with your website, even on a small screen. But it's also a problem for your SEO, like your rankings with Google, because Google has the last years put more and more emphasis on your site working well on mobile, just because they know too that more and more people are going to a mobile screen. So keep it in mind when you build a website. Make sure that that experience is very easy to use. And again, a lot of cookie cutter platforms, they have a plugin to make it 90% of the work 90% of the time. But you kind of want to go for perfection when it comes to this. You want to create a experience for your clients that is really seamless and really easy to use, and like get to the information really quickly. Which means that sometimes we need to, you would need to reorganize the whole page layout, right? Like in the way, what information you're using, so you don't use up too much valuable real estate with things that people are not interested in. So again, if you haven't already done so, review what your website looks on mobile and see if you can find any room for improvements. Because let's face it, and then I already mentioned it earlier, even your website, your mobile responsive version of your website, because of new updates on the cell phones, right, on Android or iOS, occasionally things change for the layout as well. So there's something to pay attention to over time. And again, nothing ever stays the same, and that keeps Jason and some other people really busy to kind of stay ahead of that game. Yeah, Jason, don't want to put you on the spot here. We have anything else to add to the mobile responsive aspect of a website?
I think you covered most of it there. But yeah, the Google really does take mobile friendly as a first point of like its metric system now, so for like how it reports and how it just sees your site and ranks it. So if your site doesn't have that ability to be responsive for all kinds of different devices, yeah, you sort of get demoted down below your competition, because their sites include that feature. So it's really important in the modern day to kind of have that mobile optimized experience for your visitors to your site.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Jason. And in some cases, actually, when we do design websites, we actually have a mobile first kind of a mindset. We don't even necessarily design it for a desktop anymore, although it still needs to look fabulous on a website on a larger screen as well. But and you see that more often, and there's different philosophies on that, but it depends on your audience again, right? Like you can do both. But again, like if you start looking at mobile first, it's probably good for your business, because a lot of your visitors are actually using mobile. So then the last thing we want to just bring forward is kind of more to do with the content on your website again, and we can't emphasize enough the quality of the content and how important that is. And so, like Katie, you want to say a few things about this?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to websites, people are mostly there to scan, to kind of scan through the content, quickly find what they need, and basically buy your product or service or get out of there. So basically with your content, you want to be very succinct, very to the point, and again, focus on your customer's problem. If you don't have that problem addressed, or if you don't get to the point right away, if you kind of just drag it on, they're usually not going to stick around to kind of find out more. So also, if you kind of wanted to provide a little bit more information on a product or service or on your business, there's always the other pages that you can add that on as well. Or it's kind of enticing to have them contact you to get more information if need be. But it's very important that you don't overwhelm your website visitors when they first come to your website, especially on your homepage. It's again, focus on the problem, focus on your solution to that problem, and just get right to the point with your content. So it's very important with that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's, like we said earlier, like it's important to have content, but you need to have quality content, and especially organize it. And sometimes it just takes reorganizing the content that you already have, right? Like you can actually maybe start using bullet points because, or as part of your content, right? Because people do scan for headings and for a quick overview of what this page is about. But then if there's very technical information or really information that is kind of irrelevant for people that first time they land on your website. So keep that in mind, and it's okay to have some of the more technical information on the website, but you don't have to have it front and center necessarily. Like the people that really want to investigate that information, they'll find it. And also the one thing we always look at as well, like how much information do you want to give away versus having a strong call to action for people to call you or email you or contact you and actually get more information from you, because then at that point now you have an opportunity to sell your company or your product in a more direct way, and that's always preferred over just giving them everything in the kitchen sink right on the website, and then there's no real reason for them to contact you. So that's always a kind of a balancing act that you need to keep in mind. Give them what they need, but also don't overwhelm them, because again, people are very busy. They have a few seconds to kind of make a judgment call basically on your company. Like if they already are existing clients, then the needs are different, right? In some cases, we also serve existing clients, and then you can have like more detailed resources for them. But you have to kind of go back to the very first thing we said, is about the strategy of your website, like who's your audience, like what are they interested in, what problem are you solving. Some of those things are you need to keep that in mind when you develop this content or rewrite this content. And again, content is always needs updating as well. Like you're never completely done. And keep in mind also that adding content to your website or even editing content on your website will help you with your rankings as well, because Google looks at that. That's a ranking signal that tells Google, well, this is actually a business that is active, right? Like if your last post, for example, in a blog was from 2014, your customers probably wouldn't really go like, well, that's neat, but that seems like a long time ago. But Google looks at this as well, actually, and see if there's changes and updates to the website. So as I talk a lot about Google because we're dealing constantly with them, and we try to get our clients the best opportunity for success with them. But they're changing their algorithm, so the way they rank websites all the time. They make it very interesting. Of course, they try to make their system better, and they've done a really good job, I think, because if you think about it, over time, Google results have become so specific and so accurate, right? In my opinion, they're doing overall they're doing a really good job. Not everybody may like the company itself, but they're never satisfied themselves with the results, and I like that about Google. They're always trying to come up with new ideas to serve their clients better, because they know full well if somebody else tomorrow comes up with a better system, that would jeopardize their whole business model. So again, the content just needs to be clear, and too much wordiness and too much irrelevant information is not going to help your customers, and it's definitely not going to help your rankings either. So okay, with that, we're good for time here, so we'll just open it up here. Like we covered a lot, and of course, Katie, you're going to share this information with everybody, right? Like the slideshow and even the recording. But we want to just take a few minutes here, and if there's any questions that you may have, by all means, we'd love to hear from you. You can definitely switch on your microphone and ask a question at any time now, or type it into the chat box, and then we'll respond to it. So yeah, so while you're thinking about that, and again, feel free to interrupt me. But some of the things that we discussed is put your customer first when you design your website, the layout and the content, right? And it seems obvious, but we've seen so many times we'd like to talk about ourselves more than actually about our client and the problem we're solving. Clarifying your message is a huge issue for a lot of small businesses, and we're no different, right? Like, how do you explain in 5 seconds exactly what you do? right? Like a lot of small businesses and organizations have, it takes a lot of thought to actually boil it down to a statement or something that is really easy to, rolls easy off the tongue and is actually really easy to understand for people. We talked about custom websites versus templated websites, and I think, yeah, like that kind of makes sense, right? So of course, it's a cheaper solution, but there's also some drawbacks that come with that. So it all depends on what your objectives are for this website. A clear call to action is really important, right? Tell people what to do next, because people just don't know, right? And not because people are not intelligent. It's just people are very busy and they have only very limited time to deal with the information. So make sure you track your successes and set some goals for improvement, right? Because if you set goals, you may actually reach them. A lot of cases too, if you're dealing with a team and you're in charge of the website, it's really cool to be able to share the results with your team and say, hey, yeah, we're spending all this time on doing all this stuff, but look at us. We're actually outranking our competition, for example. We're gathering, we're attracting this many visitors a month. So you need to know that, because like if things are good, then that's fine. But if things fall off the rails and there's some issues, then if you don't check on that, then you just don't know. Search engine optimization needs to be baked into your site. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of cases that has to do with the content. Mobile friendly, we talked about that, of course. Yeah, and quality information over quantity. That's really important as well. So